anybody have any questions or any comments?
I watched an interview Charlie Rose had with the Canadian writer.
Alice Munro, who just
No, the other one.
the other one. There's only two.
Margaret Atwood.
Oh, Margaret Atwood. Okay.
And it was a magical interview. I was very taken with Atwood. I loved her writing.
She's wonderful.
And she said that mystery writers know the end. All mystery writers know the end and then construct the book back to the end. Is that part of what you do?
I'm not a mystery writer.
But is that part of what you do?
I never know the end. I never know the end until I get there.
I would think that would be more exciting.
Well, it can make more of a mess along the way, you know, and I'm not saying you shouldn't know the end. Some people work that way where they know where they're going. I tend to have a sense of how I think the characters will be transformed by the end, but I don't know exactly how that's going to happen.
She said many things about characters and how they come to get her.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, Mark.
Have you lived in Georgia or San Francisco?
Sadly, I have not lived in San Francisco. I might have jumped, actually. I don't know if that was me or not. I lived in North Carolina and grew up and down the South, so I have spent time in Georgia, but I have never lived in Georgia. Yeah. Yeah. And every time I can get to San Francisco that's humanly possible, I will go. Yeah. Yeah.
What sparks you to do things just float around your mind at times, or is something that somebody else says, and then does it brew for a long time, and then you start putting together some pieces, and then finally,
Yeah.
Is that sort of the process?
So, you know, every book is different, I have found.
Right.
Yeah.
All three of the things there.
Yeah, you know, and I don't ever want to write the same book twice. So that requires, you know, me to always want to be pushing myself with my craft farther. You know, otherwise I'll rely on what I already know how to do. And I don't want to keep doing what I already know how to do. I want to do something better than what I did before. And so, like, Gathering Lights actually started about 8 years ago. And I had this scene in Golden Gate Park, which I've read in other areas here. And I had that scene, and I knew I had a book, but I didn't know any idea what the book was. And I tried all kinds of ways into that. I actually wrote another 2 books in between starting that book and kind of but once I got Remy's voice, and Remy's voice came after Keith and I went to San Francisco, and there was actually a man who tried to get us to buy his poems when we were walking down the street, and he like hands us his poems, you know, for like $1, and go back to the hotel room, and we're like, oh wow, they're great poems, but you know, they're like, a guy would do that. How cool would that be? Somebody who wants to hold the street accountable and hold his experience to hate and to the past accountable. And so once I got him and I got the sound of him, then I suddenly had the connective tissue for that book. Yeah. And then this book, Mrs. Abigail Fisher was going to have Alzheimer's. Did I just ruin everything, Thatcher? Was going to have Alzheimer's, and I started with that path, and I wasn't able to get very far. I thought that was interesting if someone were starting to sink into Alzheimer's and their characters came back, and that's what was real for them. So that was the initial impetus. And then, because I'll never run out of mother-daughter issues, the mother-daughter piece began to surface in this, you know, in this book, and then I pulled it out away from that and just tried to focus just on a rogue character, basically, and the author, and the war between, and how they both really need one another. So this book was written quicker. This one was about 8 years. This one was about 2 years. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Mark.
Extremely clever in Georgia about nostalgia. So I'd like to ask about So Pistachio talks to you about talking to another writer. I love the layers. So, want to talk about the relationship between you and Pistachio while you were writing?
But with Pistachio and I, well, with Pistachio and me, while I was
Yes.
while I was writing, I actually identified much more with Abby, with the writer.
Sure.
And so Pistachio forced me to write conflict because I don't like conflict. And I have, reluctantly realized that it's essential to fiction. And so so she was like all id, kind of almost like Frankenfurter from Rocky Horror, and her wildness and her insistence on being who she was and who she felt she was meant to be, I think helped give me some more fierceness about putting my own work out there and being a stronger writer than I was allowing myself to be. I think she was like, dude, speak it, kind of a relationship. So
Did she wake you up?
everybody wakes me up. And the cats wake me up too. Janine?
You said each book is so different, and yet don't you find there are recurrent themes in your work?
The mother-daughter piece.
You mentioned that.
Yes. Yeah. For exile is a recurring theme in my work, mother-daughter, and there's always a ghost of some kind. They're not always as literal, but there's always some ghost because I think of ghosts as just the things we carry with us, more than literal beings that are haunting. But in Gathering Lights, she's real, coming back. But mostly my ghosts are more just stuff that kind of hangs on the walls, and that fascinates me. So that, I think, kind of comes up in everything that I do also. Yeah, I think writers have questions that you end up exploring over and over, and you just kind of keep turning the question and looking at it differently with each book as you grow and as you hopefully keep maturing as a writer and keep gaining more confidence in your own voice. You keep, oh, right, there's that. I didn't look at it from that angle. Oh, so instead of like, oh my God, it's my mother again, like, oh, look at that. I didn't understand that. And for me, writing breaks my heart open. And so like each book and each story helps me love more deeply. So it's like, they're the greatest thing, and it's the greatest thing. And this book, I really wrote it specifically for writers, to talk about how important it is to love your characters, to show up for them, to be with them. They help you be the person that you're supposed to be. And so it was really like, this is a love letter to writers. This particular book was, and I wasn't sure if it would have a particularly wide audience if you weren't a reader, if you didn't know who Edwin Drood was. There's references upon references and in there. But if you're a writer and if you're a reader, it's for you, and because I think for me, writing is it's just the way I see everything in the world. It's the way I interact with everything living and past, and I want people who have that in them. And I'm not saying other art forms and other things don't do that, but people who have this writing in them, don't turn your back on it, and don't decide it's not important. Do it, because it will save your life. Like, it's there, it's what you've got to help you in this world. So use it and show up for it. Susan?
Yeah, you said that you identify the writer, not the
Sure.
slapshot. But as a writer, how do you feel about unruly characters that want to come in and do their own thing and don't want to do what you want?
Yeah.
How do you feel about this kind of thing?
Yeah. Like I feel about the students I want to drop by week 2. None of whom are in the audience at the moment. But yeah, no, I used to think they were a problem, but I have since come to see that even if they don't fit, if they're not the right character for that book, they're bringing a piece that I need for that book. And so so I've learned some patience kind of around, especially in the early like 2-3 drafts of just like, who's here, why are you here, it's all, I don't know why everybody's here. And then I get to select who really gets to stay when I get a better sense of what the story is. But yeah, I didn't like them for a long time, but I didn't know they were actually the book, Poke, 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 right? You're the book. Yeah.
I believe it was Lucy who said that all characters are stereotypes and it just depends what the writer does with them. Is that something you believe?
No. Mm-mm. It's something that Lucy believes. Yeah. Yeah.
What is your philosophy on characters from that, aspect of stereotyping?
I don't think any fully observed character can be a stereotype. And you shouldn't have someone in your book that's not fully observed. So, the stereotypes come in when the writer isn't willing to look underneath that and see what's really there and why that's there. And the stereotype becomes what you rely on because it's just everyone knows what that character is. That's the X character. That's the Y character. And, and if you're doing a parody or if you're doing something, there's time for that. But if you're doing, serious literature, you have to look underneath and find out what they really are underneath the mask. They've given you their mask. They've presented yourself with the mask. And then your job is to see what's underneath that. And a lot of writers won't go underneath. They'll just stop at the, oh yeah, everyone knows this is the crazy cat lady character, Well, no, she's more than that. What is she? Why is she there? Why is she, and more importantly, why is she there with you? Why is she your character and nobody else's character? Thank you very much.